So, the game company I worked for almost 3 years just went bankrupt. And when I say bankrupt, I mean the stock is down 99% basically this year. It's jumped 10% this and that, right? Because it's fallen like 99% last week, and now then people are buying it because it's cheap suddenly. So this really is a bankruptcy, okay? And what's very important to understand here is that last Friday then, right? All the devs, the artists, whatever, right, they are arriving at, normal Friday. Bam! Everyone is fired. 50 people fired. No warning, no nothing, right? So this video here, guys, I want to talk about that, right? I want to talk about when to abandon ship. What are the warning signals? Like, when should I stop working at the place, right? Rather than going into, like, stupid design meetings or this or that or whatever, right? Because I could spend here 10 hours, guys, talking about all the random issues, what this game didn't sell, or what that's better, blah, blah, blah. But this first video, I want to focus on when to leave, right? And also, when to stop drinking the kool-aid. You see, anyone, because this is a public traded company, so anyone can go and actually look at this company's stocks, how it's going, revenue, minus, plus, right? Yet somehow I, not working there anymore for many years, apparently are way, way more informed than the actual employees that's working there, because no one of them have done this thing. I talked to several devs over this weekend. Not a single person working there has checked these numbers, because they are obsessed with the kool-aid, right? I told them 5 years ago, your company will be bankrupt at any moment, right? And they were like, no, bro, you saying that? Like, no, I have the math in my head. Like, no. And they were so obsessed with never leaving there, right? We should talk about the video then in more details. And they all didn't see it coming, right? Even though anyone with basic math skills could see the bankruptcy coming, a miles away, right? Of course, the biggest reason why I left the company, because I didn't have the kool-aid, right? I was like, no, this doesn't make any sense. I think one thing important to understand is that as the lead designer, creative director kind of guy, I was one of the few employees that didn't, I wasn't a founder, so I didn't have stock in the company, yet I had, a manager position, right? Most of all the managers were founders, so they had, stock, right? So I was one of the few people seeing from the outside, was it having a lot of information, being like, well, this doesn't make any sense, man. It's really terrible. We don't make any money by doing this thing. I was like, what are you guys doing, But it's kind of funny, right? Because I think that because I wasn't an owner, because I didn't have any stock, so I should care less, right? I should care less. I should be less obsessed by making money, by not crashing the stock, because I don't have any stock in the company. So I should be less concerned about that, right? But I think that a huge advantage of being observant, right, having no stake except just your general job, right, meant that I didn't read the kool-aid, right? I didn't believe in the false prophecy. Talk about it in the video here, guys. Probably subscribe to this one because I can talk about it a lot, right? But I think one main reason these guys, they believe in their own lies, too much, They believe in their own grit, so to speak, in their own grifting mental thing, right? As a huge thing about it, that they not only did they sell a lot of Kool-Aid, they also kept drinking it themselves. So I was one of the few people standing on the sideline, being like, "Hey guys, this is going really bad here. The company is losing so much money." Right, and then the other managers, again, then they're all owners, they have stock in the company. They're like, no, it's great, dude, right? And they just kept drinking it, and they kept selling this Kool-Aid to everyone else. And I was like, no, this doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna leave, guys. So I left this company a few years ago now, right? Because I saw this thing happening, and I keep saying, I warned everyone. This not being hindsight. I told everyone at the company, literally everyone, and also the CEO, so I was like, this doesn't make any sense, right? And then they asked me to come back, okay? This company asked me several times, dozens of times, to please come back, be the lead designer, fix this thing, do that thing, And I was like, no, unless you fix how you're working and how you're making money, I'm not gonna come back because you're gonna bankrupt. I was like, I'm not gonna come back because I believe you're gonna bankruptcy, and also all the issues, of course. But I was like, yeah, no. So I was like, no, dudes, I'm not gonna come back right there. It was crazy. It was like leaving a cult in a way, and the cult keep trying to re-recruit you. I'm not gonna come back to you guys. Stop being a cult, guys. But honestly, it is a cult-like behavior, honestly. So let's talk about it more in detail, I suppose. So, there are some things, right, to break down here, which I think is very important to understand, right? And like I said earlier, when I into that point, I could talk so much about like weird design things, bad commercial stuff, like really bad commercial ad stuff and so on that didn't sell as much games. But all of that is gonna be another video, guys. Again, I want to be that correct guy, but I hope you subscribe. Leave a comment below, right, what do you actually want to see, because I could talk about a lot of interesting game industry parts, but for me, for my recent, biased behavior, I really get frustrated with this, like, drinking the kool-aid issue, right? I mean, honestly, this is just raspberry juice, but don't worry, guys. Yeah, don't worry. This is just raspberry, okay? I love raspberry. Don't worry. I'm from Sweden. Raspberry grows we had raspberry in my home garden. Yeah, a lot of raspberry. So, and also raspberries, strawberries, and also wild strawberries. Of course, wild strawberries is the best thing ever. Wild strawberries. Anyway, so, but one thing though, and I bring it up honestly, right? This company is in Sweden, okay? So, if you didn't know, I'm Swedish with raspberry. This company is Swedish. And I think that it is important to understand, honestly, from a cultural standpoint, let's start with that, right? Yeah, cultural standpoint, drinking the kool-aid is very Swedish. I think so. It's also quite Japanese, honestly. And I said on the video, right? The Japanese and Sweden is very similar in a cultural standpoint, even working culture, very, very much so. Because in American culture, I have experience working for Blizzard, this is all, right? In American culture, it is not actually much Kool-Aid. In American culture, it's much more like, I am wrong and you are right, and they fight more, and it's more in the discussion, debate, and so on, right? It's much more that. But when I worked in this Swedish game company, then they went bankrupt. It was very hard to get anything done, because it was always like consensus. Everyone has to agree. You want to change the main character to a woman, we have to vote about it. There has to be a vote. It was very, very Swedish. I worked for a few different Swedish game companies, 4 of them in total, I believe, 4. And this was the most Swedish, so to speak. Almost constantly consensus culture, which is a very, very then Swedish thing, right? But honestly, that's one of the big reasons, right, why this company went bankrupt, why it failed so much with different games and so on. I mean, not even addressing what games it would make or what it did make. Just imagine that every time you're trying to, fix something, right, change something, you have to have a consensus vote about it. Yeah, like it takes forever. You know what I mean? It takes forever. So, like I said, this could very well be its own video, right? But I think that is a very common issue is for Swedish culture in general. This is not just like a gaming culture thing. You can say it in IT culture, whatever, right? So it's not only for gaming culture, but honestly, very big issue in Sweden. And also, honestly, Japanese gaming companies have some experience as well, right? Japanese companies are also more consensus, or are also a little more hierarchy, so it's hard to, like, if you have a good idea, right, or if you see something really, really bad in the game, but you have like a low position, right, it's hard to tell the boss that, oh, you have to change things. So Japanese is also like that, right? In Sweden it's kind of both, because in Sweden, even though it's a flat culture, so it's not very pyramid, because everything is so slow in Sweden compared to America, it's so hard to change anything, right? So even if you see something you want to change, it takes so long time because everything goes against you. It's very like, so that's a very weird thing to do with. But anyway, that's the first issue then. But I think it goes back to, like I said earlier, right, the whole drinking the kool-aid, right? Because like working at this game company and when it went back and so on, right, it was very similar to a cult. This game company is very similar to a cult, and I think that Swedish game companies in particular are very cult-like, but especially, of course, as I said, it's just Swedish companies in general. Yeah, no, but they're cult-like, right? Because, like I said, because they're so consensus-focused, right? And because game companies are much more, I guess, sensitive to like arguments or fights or whatever, right? Or critiques or whatever, right? Much more than other companies are, so to speak, even in Swedish standpoint. And then the owner company constantly having votes on everything, right, creates this like weird group dynamic for everyone has to agree, right? So when I'm leaving this company, I'm telling everyone that it's going to go bankrupt. They have no money left. The company makes no sense. You shouldn't stay here. Abandon ship, guys. These guys, they don't want to abandon ship, right? Because they're so stuck in that culture. They're so stuck in that like cult, honestly, cult behavior. Like I can't leave now. We're part of this group. So they couldn't leave. And honestly, one thing I think about it that one of the owners kept doing all the time people was telling them, we're a family, oh, we're a family. It's mostly because they want to pay them good salaries. But yeah, it's very much like if you join here, it's a family, everyone's together, everyone this thing, right? So they kind of built them up to just never disobey them, right? Everyone just agree and so on. And that honestly really hits back, right? On these developers that are stuck on this, like, we're a family, we're all in together. So even if the ship is sinking, I mean, anyone can go and look at the financial report, right? See that the company is bankrupting at a moment. They still stay there, right? Because they're all been told that, we're a big family, and everyone goes down with the ship, everyone dies together, right? They kind of have been told. So it is really interesting in that aspect. And I think that's number 2 then. It's like a cult-like behavior, honestly. But I really think that, as I said, right, in Sweden, this is much more higher, right? And me as a person, right, that has been both in America, Sweden, Japan, and so on, right? And honestly, I probably say this thing, right? I said, I love America, America, USA! No, but seriously, like last year, I was in America. I went to many cool places in America. But America as a culture, right, is very, very different from Sweden because it's much more individualistic, much more, extroverted, much more I believe this thing, right? So what I used to say when it comes to game companies like America, Sweden, is that in America, yes, you might not have as much to say because it's harder in America to talk to your boss and say you're wrong, bro. It's harder to talk to your higher up manager. It's more pyramid, right? However, in America, the boss, they live by the sword and they die by the sword, right? So your manager usually have, this is my idea, and they go through it, and if that idea is terrible, they will take the fall, hopefully at least, but sometimes it is, and get fired, whatever, right? Or it's great, they will make more money, right? But in Sweden, they're obsessed with this consensus culture. Everyone has to be agreed, right? So no one takes the fall, no one ever gets fired if something goes bad, but also no one really takes credit if it goes either. So no one wants to change anything, right? No one is taking a chance, because what's the point? I can't make any money on taking a chance, I can't get any fame anyway. So you're kind of stuck in this weird thing, right? Which makes that it's easier in Sweden as a benefit to talk to your manager, right? To your boss, because, well, it's flatter, so you can just go there. But it's harder to actually make an impact, right? In either way, if you're the boss or if you're an employee as well, right? So it's really weird. But it is important to understand the difference, I think, a lot, because, like I said, that kind of creates that flat thing also creates, I think it's hard for people to leave as well, right? And number 3 then, right? In this particular case, then, not necessarily a culture for all the cultures in the world, but particularly in Sweden, Norway, and so on, right? It's also hard for people to leave their jobs, right? More in general, yeah. In America, it's easy to get fired, right? It's easy to get fired. You get higher salaries. You have different contracts. I'm allowed to Blizzard. If I stayed for a certain amount of time, you get a bonus salary, right? So there's a lot of more complicated contracts in America. To both, you have different systems, how long you stay and if you do this thing and so on, right? But in Sweden, instead, the concept is quite tiny. Instead, the law book, right? Laws, Sweden is massive. So basically, in Sweden, it's impossible to get fired. It's so hard in Sweden to get fired. It is so incredibly hard to get fired in Sweden. But at the same time, it's hard to get hired, right? So on the same. But I think that also means that people, even if you're working at a company that is failing, right? This company is massively failing. Everyone knows it. It is harder to leave there by yourself, right? Because it's basically, again, impossible to get fired. So even if the company is going to go bankrupt probably soon, as long as it doesn't go bankrupt, I am safe, So I think that also creates that feeling, because people are so afraid of going outside. So Swedes are, of course, way less proactively getting a new job, right, compared to America, where people change job more often than. And like I said, a big reason why is because it's very hard to hire people in Sweden, because it's hard to fire them, right? So getting hired is much harder in Sweden compared to America. So that's a huge thing as well, I think. And that, again, is pointed out here. I mean, in this particular case, that's a reason why they don't leave, right? Because they're so stuck in that, I am working here, and I'm safe here, and I'm gonna leave. Not a global, let's say, game development issue, but a very typical, Scandinavian issue, right? Of okay, this is going terrible, but I'm still here, so I don't want to leave, right? And like I said, I suppose it isn't really a game development issue. It's also just generally any company in Sweden, but it's particularly startups, to be fair, right? Now, the next thing is interesting from a psychological issue, and that is that this is very global, so we're away from the whole culture of Sweden or whatever. A very big issue, I think, and why these people didn't leave, and also when I talk to them, and even if I'm telling them the truth, I'm like showing them numbers. I'm showing them numbers, So I'm like showing the people working there the numbers, and the numbers I'm getting from the public traded company homepage, right? I have no secret information here. It's like a public traded company. I'm like, here's the public information. I'm telling you, your company has no money left. Leave this company, right? Because I was with friends. So the guys got bankrupt, right? Got fired now on Friday. I'm trying to help them, right? And the guys are still like, no, I don't want to do it, man. You're lying to me. I think the reason why is because of called default option. So people tend to just do whatever is happening right now, right? And there are reasons this thing because of organ donation. So people tend to actually want to give organs. However, in America, right, you start out as not being an organ donor. If everyone actually was an organ donor, they have to ask not to be it, right? They have to say no to it. You still have your American freedom, but you have to have the freedom to say no. Way more people would actually donate organs, right? Because there's a big difference having to like go out of it or go into it, right? So for example, the trolley problem, right? Where you have this like lever, you pull the lever, you kill people or not, right? It's like save 5 people or save 1 life and so on, right? That thing is a very good example of how people think, right? When it comes to a default option. So for example, if I tell you that, okay, this train, right, is crashing, and you have one person standing there, right, and the lever, the train is going to crash on this one person, right? Now, if you pull the lever, it will have, go on 5 people, right? Classic trolley problem, right? So either 1 person or 5 lives, Who would you save? But actually, it's a big difference for most people if you ask them, the train currently is going against those 5 people, or is going against that 1 person. If the train currently is going against that 1 person, you have to pull it to hit the 5 people. Basically, no one will say, I will pull the lever to hit the 5 guys, So they actively have to kill the people, right? But if it's going against those 5 people, they have to actively pull it against the 1 person. Most people will still do it, but that's harder, right? Now you have to actively kill that 1 person, right? It's much easier if it's already hitting those, if it's hitting in the correct way, Because you have up 2 paths, right? And if the train is already traveling in the correct path, more people, that's great. I'm not doing anything, yeah. So from a logical standpoint, from an ethical standpoint, it is the exact same result, right? If you put in the lever to go for that 1 person, or if it starts with that 1 person, it's the exact same ethical resolution, but it's much harder people if you have to pull the lever, or it's already starting in the correct, least amount of deaths, right? So that kind of game theory is very important to understand, that the default option is so important, because having to swap to the other thing really makes you have to do head, right? So, coming then to work at a company that is close to bankruptcy, right? Especially then, of course, start a company. Game companies tend to have it a lot, right? But also, of course, general IT startups. Well, it's a similar thing there, right? So even if I'm telling these guys that, I have the record, here's the paper that your company is bankrupt at any moment, bro, leave. They're like, I have to leave. That I have to actually do something, It is much harder. People have to do something, right? So I was honestly very unimpressed, and I'm saying unimpressed by people that I saw as my friends, right, not being willing to try to change jobs, right? Because they're so stuck at where they are. They're so just happy being where they are, right? And just to be fair, I must say they should immediately just swap game company immediately. This company, whatever. No, I'm saying that, a reasonable thing would be to, of course, apply for a new job while still working at this company, right? And if you get another good job, say you're a lead programmer, and you get hired as another lead programmer somewhere else, well, you probably should swap that, you know what I mean? That's what you should do, right? But instead, almost all of them, you sat there in the trolley going, in the right direction for them, right? And the ship is sinking and no one does anything. And to me, that's very unimpressive, honestly. So, for example, right, one reason, and I have no problem saying this, but I explain it to people more than once, right, in real life, More than 1 person that I worked with this company, I basically stopped hanging out with them afterwards, right? Because I was like, I'm just so unimpressed by you staying at the company, even though I and others, and they have data and so on, I explained to you why this company is failing at from a pure economic standpoint. Also, our first game we made had these issues because they're terrible or whatever. It also should make you change. So there's more than one factor. Just to get the full story here, it can take a long time to get the full story, but it's a lot of factors. And then the people that left, there were some people that left with me, kind of rebel here, but whatever. And I'm like, I like this person way more. Yeah, honestly, yeah. I'm like, this person, oh, she's awesome. Yeah, she left and I left. She saw the math and she was like, F this place, I'm leaving too. I was like, yeah, you know what? Let's be bros for life. I was like, yeah, she gets it. Kind of like that, right? But honestly, yeah, it's for me quite weird to stay at the company where it's going, down the drain. But I think that some of the facts I laid out now are some of the bigger ones. Especially, I think, honestly, the default option might be the big one. It is so easy to just nest down. Nesting is the word called too, but I think the default option is the same thing, right? Where someone just works at a place or you live in the city or whatever. It doesn't actually matter if it's just terrible. You kind of just, where I am, and this is fine. I mean, honestly, I can admit it in my own life too, right? Like, where I live currently, this is not the worst place in this town. It's not the best, it's the worst place. But I could easily buy a more expensive place. I have the money to easily move, right, and buy a better place. But I'm gonna use living here. It's not the worst place, not the best place. This house is, it's like kind of average, right? But I can obviously buy a better place. But I have to admit, I am kind of doing the default thing there, and I'm just like, I probably could just buy a better house, sell this thing, buy a better one, live in a better neighborhood, But this is like good enough. Yeah, it's good enough. But the point, it's good enough, right? If I was living in this city's worst neighborhood, then I would of course move if I had more money, right, so to speak, when I get the money. But now I'm just like, nah, this is like, I'm on the level here where it's like, nah, this is fine. It's like it's not bad enough, it's not good enough. So I think that's probably the biggest factor. You get stuck in that like motion, right, of like, oh, this is good enough. And honestly, not just from a bankruptcy standpoint, but another reason why you should maybe change jobs so on the side of here, right, is because usually you also get way more paid, right? So actually, in this context, for example, when I stopped working at this company, right, and I had this really good positioning, I was designing all the stuff, it's like a dream job, whatever, right? Everyone wants this job, it's like the coolest job in the industry kind of thing, right? When I changed my job, not a company, I got like 50% more salary immediately. Yeah, I was like, bam, much more money. So that's also a classic reason, right? The more you change job, usually the more salary you get. This is something new, right? And I say it aside here, of course, that, yeah, like you have to be a little more daring, maybe, right? Change jobs more. Definitely something I recommend then from like an industry salary, because as soon as I get my next job, they pay me more, right? And of course, to be completely transparent here, another reason I didn't go back to the company, because they offered me my job back, more than once, right? Was because I was like, well, you have to pay me even more money, right? Yeah, of course. I was like, no, I don't believe in the company at all. That was the big reason why. But I thought I might consider it if you give me even more salary than I have at my new job, right? Though, of course, so obviously you have to double my salary then. But basically, but also, why shouldn't I take the chance otherwise? On a way, I mean, what can I say? Even if I didn't have a new job, why should I take the chance to work at a company which I know is going to go bankrupt at any moment, right? Why should I go work at that company unless you're paying me way more money, because I have to make more money then, right? I expect to go bankrupt at any moment. And let me explain why here for the matter. I'm not going into the actual, I can't go into, like the legal details here, right, in this video, like why the company didn't go bankrupt immediately. So I can't explain why this didn't happen immediately. I mean, in deep details, but let me give you a little bit backstory here then for this company. And this is also, again, this is the next point in the video here, right? A big warning if you suck in the industry, and also, while this is very true for gaming companies, this is also true for general startups, right? In general. So, okay, what am I talking about here, right? The stock is just going down, it's 99% down, The thing is that when I left this company, it was so red, basically, right, that I was going to go bankrupt any moment. So I was like, I'm going to stay, I'm going to wait a better job over here, after you guys, But they didn't go bankrupt, right? It didn't go bankrupt, no, because they sold it to another company, right? They had a new investor, right? And then even with the investors, like, well, it's gonna last like a year, right? And then it's bankrupt. No, they got another investor, and then they managed to stay afloat another year, right? So this company has been red for the last 7-8 years or whatever, and basically they have got a new investment infusion every second year or every year, right? Until now, then when we find that it's bankrupt completely, like no one is investing anymore. Right? The reason it's bankrupting now is because they can't find a new investor, right? It's finally people. No one is tricked enough, dumb enough to invest in anything, right? And of course, in a general point here, if you're in the industry, you're in video games or general IT, right? This is obviously a massive red flag, bros. If your company needs to take in investment over and over again, you're probably massively in the red, right? Yeah, you're not making any money, it's going straight down. Yeah, you have to eventually, get some money in there, right? You can't just lose money all the time and sit there and be like, yeah, it's great. So that's like a massive red flag. Another massive red flag on the same context here, right, is that while they kept getting investment, like a new investor and so on, they didn't actually get investment from the old company, right? So this is all public records, but whatever. They didn't actually get so much more investment from the first investor, and that's also a massive red flag, right? So the difference is that, let's say you have a investor, right? They invest $1 million to you, and then when you need more money, they say no, so you find B investor, and they give you $1 million, right? It is much better, right, if you go to A investor, and they say, okay, here's another $1 million. That means that the A investor believes in your company, they believe in you, right? They believe in the idea, whatever. But if you're like, no, this is, and if A investor is like, no, this is terrible, you don't get money, you lost all my money, and it doesn't make any sense, that's something too, right? So this company here, then, they went bankrupt now, then last week, they have basically changed investor, right, like 4 times. They have A, B, C, and D, right? And, C is like, no, this is terrible. Then D comes in, and eventually they need E now to not go bankrupt again, right? And E is like, no way, this is so stupid. And then they go bankrupt, right? They couldn't find their E or F or whatever. They couldn't find a fifth fool, right, to invest. It's a bit of a fool's theory, seriously. Let me explain that as a side note. Talk about stock here. Fool's theory or fool's gamble. It is a concept in stock trading, and obviously I love stock trading. One thing though that was great. I've been a stock trader my whole life. But as a side note, right, when I stopped working at this company, I started stock trading way more too again, because I was so, honestly, not angry, but I was like, these people, I will show them. So it's kind of funny now, because I could literally now, because I made so much more money these last years, I could now go and buy this company. So these guys, right, the only management, the founders, I could now go and buy their stocks for nothing. Yeah, I could buy up the whole company and own more of it. The company has some value, right? The company has a few $1 million in value. I can pay that, I could buy this company. I actually offered them to buy this company. Yeah, a few years ago, I offered them to buy the company. Didn't take me up on it. I can buy a company easily, yeah. But what I guess, I love stock trading. And my point is that this fool's theory, that side of it. Fool's theory is when you buy a stock. It's actually one of the best ideas for stock trading, in a way. So basically, you buy a stock, right? Which is terrible. So basically, you're buying a stock, a share of whatever, right? Let's say Tesla, or for sake here, and that it has no value, right? So you're buying it purely to believe that the next fool will buy it from you. I don't make that money. I made a lot of money on fool's theory gambling. Basically, you buy a stock, it's all hype, right? It's all it's all smoke and mirrors. And your only concept is, I can sell this for more money to another fool that's bigger than me. I can sell this thing to someone else. Yeah. I have made a lot of money during Corona. It's so easy, man. You just take some stock, right? So to some extent, GameStop is. I know it's a short squeeze, but to some extent, there is a fool's theory, right? Because you're holding something, and then eventually you might sell it, even though it's going up and has maxed out, because you're hoping someone else will be a bigger fool as well. It's pretty funny. Trump had a stock, right? It has stock, but Trump had his social media stock thing. When that was news, it's back. That was hilarious, because people basically were like, his fool's theory. Yeah, people are like, this has no value, but because it has his name to it, let's buy it. Let's sell it. It's so easy. It was so easy. Because people are gonna go crazy over it. Yeah, just put a name alone, right? It's hilarious. But I digress. But I think that to some extent, right, this company, it does represent like a venture capital fool's theory, where it's just like, oh yeah, a investor maybe believed in them, right? That company, that person might have been, oh, this is a great new game company. I believe in these guys. They can make a great game, right? But after they failed that, right, they couldn't deliver on that investment. There was a B company, B company, I would argue, was a fool's investor. They would be like, oh, nothing here makes any sense. There's massively losing money. But if I give them $1 million now, right, so I get the company now, maybe I can sell it to someone else, right, for $2 million, So I would feel to some extent it is like a investment fool's theory in a higher level of it, which is, of course, that exists. Of course, that exists, right? Absolutely. People buying all the time, right? People buy companies. I should say people. Usually it's like venture capital, hedge funds, whatever. Right? It's like individuals. But sometimes even individuals, right, might buy a big portion of a company and then they're like, well, I can probably sell it for more money. Which is, you could always a goal, but I mean, the goal is to buy a company they don't believe in at all and then sell the company to someone else that they can trick, right? Yeah, it's not the same thing as like investing into the company and actually believing in it, right? And like I said, I think to be fair here, the first person investing into the company, right, that those people probably aren't the fool, right? Because they can't know they're gonna fail the first time, right? But the fourth investor, the fourth company investor, then you can like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you see the track record, right? You see the track record. Anyway, what more can we say? But to some extent, though, it is a fool's theory, and like I said, this not necessarily isn't. If you were working in the game industry, right, and you experience this thing, right? Like I said, a lot of people, and you might be surprised if you haven't worked in the game industry, but a lot of people, almost everyone that I know that work in the game industry, outside of Japan though, because Japan is very much more like rigged, but almost everyone I know that work in Europe and America have worked on these startup companies, right? Yeah, so almost everyone in the game industry, in the west of the game industry, has been at these like really weird game companies where they don't have any money, because usually, right, the easiest job to get is of course a business, Usually it's hard to go into the game industry and get, like on your resume and get a good, whatever game, right? So a large portion of developers end up at these like kind of, massively risk-taking companies, right? Of course, and many of them fail, right? So I really do think it's important to understand like when to get out, when do I leave and abandon, because again, compare this thing to the stock market, right? If you have a bubble in the stock market, it's great to ride the bubble then sell on top, right? Or at least ride a bit and sell somewhere going up, right? But you don't want to be on a downhill, right? But riding the bubble is great. So for example, a lot of these people, right? And I say this to be mean, no, but I haven't probably say anything. Some of these people, right? They've been in this company for many years now. Their titles are way bloated, right? Their titles are like lead artist or whatever. When they would never get a title if they went to like a much bigger game company with more real rules and actually skills are important, right? And they got there because they've been staying in the company for like 5 years, right? And people like me, people left it because like this company makes no sense, right? So we abandoned it, and eventually the people can kind of move up to the top, right? Even if they don't have the skills, right? Because the people at the higher level are also much more prone to leave, of course, right? The better you are, the easier you have to, of course, change job, obviously, but also the better you are, the easier you have to understand and see that this company isn't working out, right? Like, oh man, this makes no sense. Yeah, that kind of reflection in your head, right, is going to be higher the more you understand and know, obviously, right? Which means that this company will have like a brain drain, right? Which is going so bad every year. It's going to have a brain drain where the small people probably will leave faster, right? Both because they see the issue, but also because they have an easier time getting up. So they will leave faster, and eventually the low people will get up there in top, right? So it's very interesting, honestly, I feel, because there might be a side. Sorry if it's going a little bit side over here, but I feel like I have seen this before in my life, right? When I worked with, so I know this guy. He's like design director and blah 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 and so on, right? Great titles on his own, great job title, but he is incredibly incompetent. Okay, not in this company. Okay, so they're not the same company. I'm gonna say another company. I won't say which company, but another company. And the reason, right, that he's even managed to get that kind of design director at big companies, right, is because he spent like 10 or so years at a really tiny, again then, right, a very miserable game company that didn't make much money, and they went up and down, almost bankrupt every year. He basically spent his year, 20, 30 years, that kind of out of college until they bankrupt. In that sense, right? And because of the reason, like I said, right, he managed to eventually become the manager, right? Because everyone else left. You know what I mean? So eventually he became the boss of the designers, and then he was there for a few years as design director, right? And then they finally went bankrupt. Again, this is not a company. Yeah, sorry, not a company. But your point. Suddenly he's like a design director experience, right? And then he gets picked up by EA or Blizzard or whatever, some big game company, right? And he has no actual skills. Has never led a company that actually works, right? Never managed to actually lead a bunch of people and so on. And suddenly he's the design director, and here I am as the senior designer at Blizzard or whatever, having to work with this guy, and I'm just like, my god, this guy's competence insanely, right? Check a resume. Wait, he was a design director for 5 years at this company. They never released anything. Yeah, it's like that is actually an effect too of this thing. Again, sorry that this was a little bit side noted, but I think it's important to point out that this is also thing you have to watch out for. Red flags in that way too, right? You have to red flag these people. And like I said earlier, I have a problem saying it. I would basically never hire anyone that stayed, right? I would basically never hire anyone of the people that get to this company, right? And they know it's massively going down every year. They know that they never released a good game that stays, right? And they know that they're losing all the developers, right? And so all the time. Yeah, it's very in and out, and it's very this kind of thing, right? All these red flags. I would be like, why are you staying there for this years? It's because it's a default option. Is it nesting? Is it maybe? I guess I haven't mentioned that yet, but I have another stock term, which is sunken cost fallacy. Like you feel you already spent so much time here, you can't leave it. There's so many things that goes out, right? And I do want to bring it up though that this is not the same thing as sunken cost fallacy, but I will say this thing though in the defense post. So I did the same thing, right? Is that there is this artistic desire though. Like, why do you stay at the company which you know is gonna fail? But the thing is that I knew this company was gonna fail and go bankrupt, right, for many years. And when I was working there, I saw it. Okay, we're starting to get really bad, right? But I still stayed for a little longer because I had this game, right? I've been working for like 2 years. It was almost finished, so I still stayed for that last year, right, to finish that game. So I do understand that, though. I think that's like the only defense for this actually is that you have basically like an art piece, right? Like a canvas, and it's almost complete my painting, right? So even if the company is terrible, I want to stay and just finish my painting. So in my own experience, right, I left that company and I never want to go back, and they wanted to rehire me and so on, and I refused to go back. And I kind of had it immediately, right, when that game was finished, right. So that game was out, I was out, That's kind of I was like, I'm out, This game is out, and I'm leaving now because I want to finish my game, and the game is out. People can buy, people can play it, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm leaving, right. And I think that is the only defense I feel that can actually reach push here is that it is going against yourself, but you want to finish your art piece, right. So I can see why some people are staying in the game industry, or particularly really terrible jobs in the industry, because you want to finish your art piece. You spend 2 years on this game, on your art, your design, whatever, and the game is almost coming out, and you want to finish that last bit, right? That's the only thing I can relate to, and say, okay, that makes sense, that makes sense. But then you're running around these immediately, right? But that's basically what I did, right? And also, as a side factor, that's also a reason why I didn't want to come back, right? So I knew that, okay, if I come back, even if you double my salary and all this stuff, right, I'm going to come back and then start a new game. And I did design the next game, of course, the basic of it. I was a design document and so on, of course, but I was like, still, I have to go back there, starting like for real, design that game. And then eventually I'm going to feed the feeling, right? Eventually, after a while, I'm going to feel that, you know what, now I have to stay to finish this thing. Eventually, after a year or two, I feel like I have to stay now. I have to finish this shit, I don't want to get the feeling. It's much easier now to leave. And I think that also explains why, of course, a lot of people, right, they leave and they change companies after they finish their game. Or whatever, probably, the game industry. It could be Google, whatever, right? But I think it's a very common behavior, of course. You're gonna change, right? After you're like, well, okay, I'm finished. Yeah, let's get finished now. You see it's been what many different products, right, And also a reason with that thing is that you kind of often see game companies, especially smaller ones, changing genre, right? So for example, Unicorn Overload, New Escape from Vanillaware, they never make sequels, and they only make, like whatever. The last game they made was Third Sentinel, Aegis Rim. Those two games have very different gameplay. One is like real-time strategy, ogre battle side. The other one is like a visual novel, right? They're very, very different from a gameplay standpoint. And the reason why, for one factor, at least, it's because, of course, if you tell your employees, well, okay, we finally finished, this like RTS visual novel game. That was fun for 5 years. I was like, yeah, but it was fun. And they're like, now we're gonna make another one. Then people are gonna leave. You're gonna be, I don't want to do that. I'm tired of this visual novel shit. But I'm telling you that you make a new game instead, right? A new genre. They made it for people who have tend to stay, right? So honestly, I think a large reason why some people or some companies keep like changing the genre every time is because then, of course, the developers are much more likely to stay at the company, right? Because otherwise they get bored having to make the same game again, right? Or a similar game in the same genre. That is the average developer's feelings. A lot of developers I know do exactly the thing. If their company is doing the same genre again, they swap company. Yeah, I've been on FPS for 5 years now. I want to change company. I want to do a strategy game. I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah, it's actually a very common thing. People swap industry. I think in the gaming industry a lot because they want to work on the genre or the genre. That being said, though, of course, there's people that are obsessively into some genre, so they don't care. Yeah, of course, there's some people. I'm at that. I can do the same game over and over again. I mean, not the same game, but the same genre. If it's the genre I like, yeah. So no. Some people are like, they can eat the same food every day as long as they like the food. Yeah, like, this is the best food ever. They keep eating it. And honestly, seriously, those are the people you actually kind of want to hire, right? If you can spot that, and especially for design roles, you kind of want to have those people that really, really love the genre. And honestly, that can be a big issue, right? Like on that company, then we made a strategy game and then an FPS game, second game. And a lot of people we hired didn't even like strategy games, right? We need to have a developer, and the salary is pretty low, and it's hard to find like a developer that also is willing to have a low salary and like the genre. Isn't that easy actually? So that's another issue. But anyway, what more red flags? Well, another red flag, of course, and this is something I mentioned way earlier in the video, and I'm sorry if I jumping a bit, but I think it's very important to understand, is that I said it earlier, right? And we're gonna go back to this in the end of the video now then. Bam, it's the actual financial here, right? So one thing that struck me as, honestly to me, very irritating, but also I'm almost surprised, right? Is that when I talk to more than one of these employees, right, they just got fired, so they lost their jobs. Not only have they say in the kool-aid and they're like, oh no, they're still defending the company. But I asked them, right, no warning, no economical warning from the owners or whatever, right? They said, no, of course not. And one of them, he told me, and I have it in writing, that if they have told him anything about the financial records, that would have been insider trading. And I just laughed, I laughed like a little child, right? Because I was like, no, what do you mean? It's a publicly traded company. You can see over me here. These are the actual numbers. So I showed him these numbers. I was like, but it's a publicly traded company, bro. And he's just like, I don't know stocks. You don't say. I mean, so I was like, no, bro, they can tell you if it's a public traded company, not only do they have to tell you, they have to tell everyone how the money, how it's going, right? So in this case here, for example, you can see that they lost more money than last year. 32 million Swedish crowns is up or down then. Not a 4.8 million, right? They also made less money in total. So this here is really bad because they have moved less money, right? You know what I mean? They moved less money, but they have more cost. So what it shows you here is that the company has both shrank, right? In a total, like how much in and out of money, revenue, salary, so on. That's down, right? But they still have more in a lose, right? Way more. They're losing more money, but they're also moving less money. Total assets are less and so on, right? So they're less bloated. They're losing more money, whatever you call it. So they're both shrinking and still have a higher cost. These are like terrible numbers. These numbers over here was released, a while before everyone got fired, right? So if I was working there and I have all these red flags, I'm sorry, I would probably be fully aware that my company I'm working for is terribly, terribly financed, right? If I'm working at the company, I'm gonna make sure that I know how it's going, right? Like I have a very good understanding of my current job's financial problem, Like I would be incredibly shocked if I got fired tomorrow because of like financial issues. I'll get fired for terrible personality. Yeah, yeah. I would, if anything, I would fire for something else. Yeah. No one is. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like I would be incredibly surprised, right, if my current employer would tell me that we have no money anymore. I also be really worried given who my current employer is. Given who currently pays my salary, it also would make me really, really worried. I'm like, oh my, what does this actually mean? Yeah, I would be very surprised if that was going bad. But of course, I have, I'm fully aware, right, of how much money my current job is making. I mean, as much as I can, of course, be aware, right? I'm fully aware if we have less or more consumers, right? For example, last week I had this huge contractor coming from America. We had a little meeting with them, buying, selling stuff. I can't tell you any information here, but in my point, and I was the liaison for that, right? For these people, and like obviously I'm fully aware of what it costs to buy the stuff and what we're gonna make or whatever. Otherwise, I'd be crazy. Like, why would I not care about that? Like I said, of course I can't be more aware than I can be, so to speak, by any laws or whatever, right? But why should you not be as aware as you can, right? I am as aware as I possibly can be, basically, right? When it comes to the financials of any job I have, currently and in the past, you know what I mean? And that's what to me, and obviously the video here looks like very spiteful, right? Which it is. It's more skadeglädje, say Swedish. But to some extent, certainly for me, I am disappointed more than surprised. Disappointed and surprised, I suppose, that I, as an outsider, kinda, right, now many years after I left the company, still have more information. I have more data in my head how likely this company is to pay my salary or someone's salary. I mean, basically, I have my friend, let's call him David, right? This is a made-up name now, of course. Dove Ulf. Dove Ulf, which is a nickname of our friend. So Dove Ulf is working at his company, and I, as an outsider, so to speak, have a more understanding of the likelihood of him being paid his salary on time than Dove is, even though he works at the company. That doesn't make any sense, right? And it doesn't do it insider trading. So honestly, not to be that kind, but I did that guy. When that guy told me, and he wrote to me, it was like on Facebook. I was like, we're talking Facebook Messenger. I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, you have every right in the legal book to look at, again, then public records. It's like I can do that right now for you and show you. I mean, it's so absurd, and to me, obviously, it's an excuse, right, for laziness. It's a lazy excuse, right? But it comes back a little bit what I said earlier, right? For people, it's so easy to just nest in, be happy where you are, stuck in that bubble, right? And it's easy to pretend that the bubble is bursting, and you're stuck in that, and not be aware of life. Maybe, leave a comment below. Maybe I'm cynical. Maybe I'm just a monster. I care too much about actual values. But the thing is that I know it might sound like I'm just all full of it and it's like all hindsight or whatever, but I think it's that, as I mentioned earlier, right? You have all these red flags, You have all these red flags. For example, I said it earlier, but if I summarize the video for you guys now, right, so we have a little bit of a understanding, right, As I mentioned earlier, one thing is that, well, this company keeps needing to get new investors, right? The money constantly goes down, and we constantly need to get investor A, B, C, and D, and A isn't willing to win again, and B isn't willing, right? There's a change investor every time. That's a double red flag, right? One red flag, they have to constantly get new investor. That's a red flag, right? But it's a bigger red flag that the first investor, second investor, doesn't believe in the company, right? So there are two massive red flags. So because this company has so many red flags, right, then you should be really, really concerned, right? If you're gonna go bankrupt or not, right? If you actually have a salary. I mean, it's a very common issue in the gaming industry that you might not get salary on time, right? You might not get your money. They promise you, it's coming next week or whatever, right? And so on. So you have to be fully aware of that. But I said, those are two red flags. Another red flag, of course, is what I'm talking about with this my friend, right? It's all like, oh, we can't talk about insider money or blah, 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 and so on. Bro, I was at Blizzard and Disney, right? When I was at Blizzard, they sent me to like insider trading school, okay? I have a diploma in insider trading economy because they know I love stocks, right? And they taught me all about inside trading and this and that. And I'm just like, I'm so tired of it. I'm sorry, I'm tired of people lying, right? I'm tired of people that have what's called Dunning-Kruger, where they have so little information, so they think they have a lot of information, right? I'm like, bro, you're allowed to buy stock in the company you work for, okay? I have many times bought stock in companies I work for. That is not illegal, okay? That's not illegal. What is illegal is if you will buy it before something happens, or if you will like short it before it crashes or whatever, yeah. So you have what's called like Black Monday and so on. You have stuff that you can. You're very, very legal to own stock in companies you work for. It. I have stock in Google, not just YouTube or that. No, but I mean, like, it's crazy talk. Okay, it's crazy talk. Of course, you can buy stock companies you work for, and of course, the stock owners and the CEO or the COO or the CTO, whatever title they have, CFO, whatever. Of course, they can tell you how it's going, generally speaking. If you ask them, right, oh, what's the numbers, right, and the numbers are a publicly traded company, the CEO probably can tell you exactly what, you know, those numbers are, right? He might not tell you what he thinks numbers will be next week or whatever, right? But he obviously has been in those meetings and he's read the papers, right? Hopefully at least. So he can tell you that, oh yeah, we had like, you know, we were minus $5 million last week or whatever. I mean, he can tell you that because that's publicly traded knowledge, right? So if he's just like, now I'm not going to tell you that, bro, that's illegal, right? He's lying to you, and you obviously should be aware of that's an obvious lie because he has to tell you that because it's public traded company, right? But also, like, why is he hiding this from you, right? Why is he hiding it from you? There's a massive red flag. So, again, right, when I worked there were all of this stuff all the time, right? There's always red flags, right? Because even when I worked there, and I'm going to put out that when I worked there, it wasn't publicly traded yet, right? So, of course not. So, let's put that for a second here. It was not publicly traded when I worked there, and that makes it even more suspicious, because if it's not publicly traded, you can tell me anything, right? Because I can't buy or sell a stock anyway, so there's no limitation to like when I should or shouldn't buy, right? Because the thing is that again, you can buy stocks in the company you work for easily, right? But you can't buy them at certain timers. Like, you can't buy the day before they announce news and it's massive, terrible news, and you short it the day before. They will be trading. That would be terrible, right? But if you just go and buy this stock at like a random date or something, it's pretty fine, or short, whatever, yeah, it's pretty fine. Like, it's so, no. When I worked there, of course, because that's not a company, right? It's a, what's called, it's still used privately, so to speak, right? It's not public yet because, you know, it's a new company and I was the first employee, right? That means you can tell me anything, right? So what can I do with that? Go to the newspaper, I suppose, but I can't affect the stock. Stock isn't even out yet, you know what I mean? So I can't buy the stock, I can't short it, I can't tell anyone it's going great, bro, because you can't buy it, right? So, yet, when it was privately held, in the beginning, right, then of course it got public, but you get public later, right? Yeah. Even at that point, the owners were very weird about it. They never want to talk about it. It was always like, this thing and that thing. It was always very secretly about it. It was very strange, you know, very, very strange, yeah. And like I said, it's much stranger being that when it's a private company, yeah. When it's a public company, it's strange because, well, you can also use, you know, I can go and look at the papers myself, right? So it's more like when it's public, it's more like I'm asking you because I just want you to kind of give me the summary of it, right? Basically, right? So it's weird. Either way, it's a red flag. Either way, it's weird, right? So that's one thing too, you know. And then you should never trust people like that, you know. No, never trust them like that. Well, the last thing I want to iterate back to, I suppose, is also this fake niceness, right? You know. And this is maybe where I come off as a cynical old man, but I don't trust people that are too nice, right? No, but seriously, the thing is that this company, right? Like I said earlier, one thing that always gave me a red flag, and this is a very Swedish thing, so you can go with the flow here. But my mother always told me, and I said it, my mother loves stock market. Okay, I don't give her enough credit. My mom, she loves index funds. Respect for mom there. Yeah, I never give my mom enough credit, but she actually really loves investment in money and stuff. So yeah, which is uncommon for a woman her age, you know. Especially like Sweden, you know. Now my grandpa, her father then, min morfar, he also was really in the stock market. He has an old company. He built his own house from scratch. He bought a house outside of Gothenburg. He built it for his own hands, like a really cheap, land. So my mom has always been really into stock market, and honestly, I don't give her enough credit for that because that is uncommon, right, for a woman, born in her generation, to speak, and for men generally too, but especially for women, and being so into it and so on. So that's quite impressive by mom there, and of course inspired me to some extent to always like money, right? And my grandpa, that her father, he always gave me money as a kid, right? So he gave me like math tests and so on as a kid, and he would then give me money, straight up money, if I passed them in time. He would like bribe me to be good. And then my older grandfather was a math professor, so so they were both just like teaching me math and economy all the time. It's a reason that I have pretty good money. But anyway, but honestly, as I know, it is really sad, I think, that we don't teach economy, right, to kids. I think the schools teach economy. It's very important. Every country is so weird. We don't teach people stock market so right. Like I said, my mom was obsessed with stock market. She's always talking about index funds or whatever. My grandpa loved stock market, right? My older grandpa was a math professor. He loved math and numbers and stock and so on. So I was always told my whole life, buy stocks, do this thing, right? And I've been buying stock my whole life, right? And like I make so much more money on just I make so much money by just sitting doing nothing right now, but I have so much, invested in the general market, so I make more money by just like the increase I have on a yearly basis, right, is more than I make salary wise. And I have a really good salary. I have a good degree and I work at a very specific place, but yet my salary is basically the same thing, right? I'm at that level where I double my money on that, right? So, and it's not some magic, so I think it's really sad, honestly. And I bring it up here because I think it's really important, right, in this general thing, we talk about this video here, like where should you leave, where should you go to the company, whatever, because all these red flags, right, or the biggest thing, the psychology and so on, and might come to my last part here, but just like, just having a general understanding of stocks and money and investment, right, you will see these red flags too, like, one of the reasons why I see these red flags, right, is because, well, I have a master's degree in behavioral science, so I'm very good at read people, and I know people are lying to me, so I'm very good at I'm a human liar. I'm very good at that. So I'm like, do something weird here. So I'm very good at red flags, so to speak. But I'm also very good at economy, right? I'm very good at the stock market and so on. So of course, that comes from mostly my family, right? No one ever taught me stocks at school, at all. It's all my family. And because of that reason, I can see these companies and not to make any sense, I can see this company and be like, this is economically, it's not viable for a second, right? More than once in my life. And again, I don't think that I have some kind of super duper understanding in a sense of stock market. I think I have enough, to make money on it, right? From my family. Maybe I'm being a little humble, I suppose. Maybe I probably do know way more. I spend a lot more time probably than I admit in this thing. But still, you get my point. I think that that's like another factor, I suppose, I want to bring up here, is that a lot of reason these people stay, right? A lot of reason they don't believe me when I showed them the number in the face. I showed them, here's the number, bro. Here's the data, right? Here's the records, here's the ER report. And I saw that say ER report because it means R means report, earnings report. I don't want to say ER report. I'm showing them the earnings report or whatever, right? And they don't believe me anyway. Sure, to some extent, it's like it costs fall, it's nesting, etc. It's the default option. But to some extent, it is honestly probably that people are so bad at economy. People are so bad at actually understanding markets and just value of stocks or what is like possible to get up and down or whatever, right? Because if you have that, you can immediately see that this company makes no sense, right? Like it makes zero sense. And I've seen it more in one game company. I had another game company, like a mobile game company, and I was like, my god, this makes no sense. We're selling all the deal stuff way too cheap, basically. It was like, we are not making enough money. It's not valuable making skins if no one buys them, or if they buy them, it costs like only $1 to the money, whatever. And so stuff like that, like it doesn't make any sense, right? And I think honestly, it's like so few people that actually understands basic economy. It's so strange, isn't it? People get the salary and they can buy food or whatever and pay the rent, but it is. I mean, I keep telling people all the time, right? And honestly, I have pondered for a long time to make a stock YouTube channel, right? There's one thing I'm thinking today was about the whole like, why don't people invest more in these funds? It's so simple. In these funds, SP500 is up like 9.5% per year average for 100 years. Like, why would you invest for? It doesn't make no sense in investing. Like, I have those in my head. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you invest for, right? And so on. But anyway, that was a tangent. But I think it's important to think about, because I think, only like I said, a large reason why so many people get stuck in this. Oh, should I abandon? Should I change job? This company is because they actually can't understand the numbers. They actually can't understand the figures of what is good and bad. They actually genuinely struggle, right, to understand if the company is bad or not. I mean, obviously, a lot of startups are minus, right? Very much so, but you can still like judge and understand, analyze to speak, right? How much minus they are and how much it should actually be on the time. For example, I once worked in a game company when we hired like testers, so we outsourced testing, not all of it, but to a large extent on the countries. And to me, that made like no sense, because the test is so little, right? I had to, like, how much money do I pay per tester in other country compared to other countries, that kind of stuff, right? Like, the budget for me made no sense doing that. It was cheaper to like hire someone in the country we are in, but they can test all the time, and it's also less much, he's work next to us and so on. It's gonna be way cheaper. So stuff like that, like it's basic economic people is very hard for a lot of people. I think that also, gets them into this position here then, where you can't even understand, honestly. It's also dark now, but I think it's fair that some people can't even understand that a company is failing, right? Because they just look at the number. But I also think, I hope this video here is educational, because one of my general points is that, as I keep saying, right, is that I go to the figures, right? You can tell me whatever you want as a CEO or CEO or whatever, right? I'm gonna go and look at the figures, right? I'm gonna go and look at the math, okay? The math doesn't lie, Minus 50 million, that doesn't lie to me. Math is tracked, Math is truth. My immediate reaction is to, if you tell me that, if I feel that the company has all these red flags, right? It's a 5 red flag. My immediate is like, okay, can I look at the financial records? Yes, I can. It's publicly traded. Let's go to look at the public trade information. Unless they are lying, which they might do, some people do, right? Assume they're not lying in the records. Okay, let's look at the records, right? I'm immediately like, how can I verify this thing? You know what I mean? I don't care what you're telling me, right? I don't care whoever is working there, what they're telling me. I don't care, right? Same thing if I buy a stock company, right? If I buy Nvidia, Google, or whatever, Microsoft, of course I have those stocks, obviously, full disclosure, of course I'm invested in like all the tech companies, because I love tech, right? No question there. Nvidia is going quite well, yeah. I should have more. There's all that. My only emotional hate for stock market, I should have bought more. Yeah. My only true enemy of the stock is that I never buy enough, It's always like, I'm up $1,000, I could have more, yeah, that's the big issue. But anyway, you look at the numbers, right? Look at the numbers. And you figure it out, yeah. And then you look at whatever the CEO is saying or whatnot. Then you look at the people behind it, Because of course you want to care about people behind it, Because let's be honest here. Like a charismatic CEO is probably going to say more stock, right? Of course. But you have to look at the figures, and then you look at what they're saying, right? But anyway, the last thing then, I went on my tangent here, but I found it's an important tangent because, to be fair, right, I do have a family background where everyone loves numbers, basically, right? If anything, both my grandparents, they love numbers, My dad's good numbers too, though. Doesn't do much numbers, but he's an investor too. He owns a lot of stuff too. My dad's not stock. He's more real estate guy, but he invests stuff too, My mom is an investor. She loves investment, yeah. So, my brother loves investment. He's a little bit crypto for me, though, but he's into it. My sister too. We're all obsessed with it. Yeah. But usually I joke with my friend and I say that my dad is like, he's like Lionel Luthor, I'm Lex Luthor. Yeah, we're all way into stock market and so on. Yeah, it's way into investment stuff. But it's not like money for me though. Mostly I like stock market probably because I like to win stuff. I play games, right? And honestly, the stock market for me is like a big game. Yeah, it's like a huge. This is a game with better stakes on it. Yeah. No, I'm joking a little bit, but sometimes though, I bought stock just to like, oh, this is gonna go up because of this reason, right? But anyway, I digress. Before I went into it, my mom always said this thing when I grew up as a kid. That is to never trust anyone that is too nice to you. It was called klämcheck in Swedish. My mom always told me that never trust anyone, especially not a person with authority of you, like a boss, right? So there was this game company. One of the owner he's super nice all the time, right? He's klämcheck, I would say that. He's overtly nice, regardless of what you do, right? So I always had zero trust for him. That to me is a snake oil salesman, right? A massive red flag. And of course, every time when they actually push on shows, he is a complete sociopathic person. One of the worst I've ever met in my life. In really, really evil person, so honestly. I won't go into too much here in details, but incredibly bad person. But to me, my mom's advice always stayed true, right? Never trust anyone that is overtly nice, no matter what, right? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Why are you so nice to me for, right? He's always too nice on all the interviews, too nice, and it always bothered me so much too because I shared office, right? Because I was a manager. I shared an office with this person who sitting next to me and another manager, and every time I heard him on the phone, right, with some, contractor or whatever, right, because we're sharing enough, I hear him talking, right, he's just like, oh, you're my best friend, bro, he's like, oh yeah, I will build you, it's kind of like a Trump sounds, yeah, he's like, oh, I will build this, I will build you the wall, yeah, he's always like doing that shit all the time, and I'm just like, oh, it's so fake, man, it's so fake, and I want to put out though too, that I think especially in a Swedish context, that is really weird because Swedes aren't like that, Swedes are very like neutral, yeah. We're not Americans, we're not like, it's the best thing ever, no. Swedes are much more like, this is good, yeah, this is okay, yeah. So he's doing that thing all the time, right? He's very, very over-exaggerated, everything is perfect all the time. That honestly for me was the biggest red flag when I was at a company, because I immediately, from day one, never trusted that owner. Because he was just always just too nice to you. Want to hug you, want to do this thing, want that, right? It was also really weird, yeah. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, he was always the guy being like, over here, a family. Everyone that comes to a family. Everyone's on the same page. He's basically selling you the kool-aid, right, He was the guy. He was a snake old salesman, klämcheck, overtly nice, always trying to sell everyone the kool-aid, right? His whole life goal used to be like, Kool-Aid, yeah, you want to drink some, right? Be part of the family. Everyone's so nice here. All the time. He never did anything. He was terrible. His extra competence level. He's very nice all the time. And if anything, he was a Kool-Aid salesman, right? More than a snake ale salesman. And always in my head, like I said, my mother's advice to never trust anyone that is too nice to you. It's called klämcheck, right? Because they always have alternative motives, right? It's so obvious, yeah. I don't like it, And as a side note, I have a huge dislike, right, for most reaction channels on YouTube. And people are like, oh, do you react to too, bro? I'm not a reaction channel, right? I do reactions. I have genuinely never seen myself as a reaction channel because I do reactions, right? That's a part of something I like doing, but I don't see myself as a reactor, right? I'm just like, this is part of whatever, right? A reason I don't like, not everyone, but a lot of reaction, because for me they're all fake, right? Because they're all too positive, right? There's some reactors that are far too negative, so they always hate everything, right? Like I have one of those guys I know quite well who hates everything he looks at. I'm just like, okay, this is fake, right? You don't hate everything, this is fake. But most, of course, reactors are overtly positive, right? Everything is the best thing. Oh, everything is 10 on 10, right? I can't deal with that, I don't watch. There's actually very few other, so to speak, reactions that I watch, right? Because they have that feeling to me. But for me, it's like, oh, it's a red flag, You're hiding a skeleton in your closet because you're overtly nice. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense here. Like, I don't trust your behavior. Yeah, for me, you're always lying something, right? You're hiding something. When it comes to YouTubers, I think most YouTubers are probably just hiding incompetence. If anything, they're overtly nice because they don't have anything to say. Yeah, they don't have an actual, like meaningful conversation. They're just pretending. Yeah. But when it comes to workplaces, I'm always like, okay. So for example, where I currently work, no one is overtly nice. That is great, except one person, and I don't trust the person whatsoever. No, but seriously. I hope to God the person watched the video now. It happened yesterday. Oh God, I want to say, there was one thing happened yesterday, and I was like, oh, this person did, oh God, I cannot say, okay, this person might genuinely watch this video, because I know some of my coworkers actually do watch my video, so I don't want to say here, because you gotta figure out what I'm talking about. But there was this one thing, okay, so we had, I'm just gonna be very, okay, so we had this, presentation, PowerPoint, whatever, yesterday, and a bunch of people there, and then this person said something after the presentation that to me was like, that's like a really weird statement. Like, it's completely irrelevant for everything that happened. It's kind of nowhere, and the person says that before everyone leaves, kind of thing, which is like, oh yeah, by the way, like, I love everyone. Like, they didn't say anything, but the point. Basically, like, before everyone leaves, like, oh yeah, by the way, I love you all. Okay, see you guys tomorrow. Kind of like that, We're like, why did you say that for? At first, it sounds nice. It must sound nice, but I'm kind of weird. Like, yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, like, why is he screaming? Why is he screaming that for? Yeah, why does he want to buy something from me? Like, it just seems weird, right? It wasn't like that, and honestly, it was much more. I can't go into more this here. But I can't, because I know I have two coworkers that watch my videos seriously, so they will figure out me who I mean, because this was much more clearer than that. Okay, it was very weird. It felt really off-putting to me, at least. Some people probably liked it, but for me, it kind of shell, right? For me, it was like, no, this is clearly manipulation, right? It's like clearly a way to try to manipulate people, like selling the kool-aid. Oh my God, it was so weird. It was so weird. And the funny thing is, though, is that for some people, though, it works, right? They fall for that Kool-Aid selling for the snake salesman. But for some other people, it doesn't work at all, right? And I think it's interesting, because at my current job, it's like 50% are like, oh yeah, that guy is clearly lying. Yeah, at my current job, it's like half of the company is like, okay, that guy is clearly selling some shit over there. Yeah, don't trust him, And the other half is like, oh yeah, great person. Yeah, so it's like a system, right? It's like 50% each, yeah. But at this game company got bankrupt, it basically was like a 90% being like, yeah, bro, Kool-Aid, yeah. So I guess that's a way to look at it too, right? You can kind of look at how many people are buying that kind of behavior, and maybe I'm just a cynical, old, evil person that I don't trust anyone. But I think it is, to some extent, it's my background. But I do think it is having to do with the game companies in general. I do think game companies are much more cult-like, like I said earlier, in the bigger video. I think they are much more easy to fall for that stuff. I think game developers tend to be much more, both politically left-leaning, like, woke or whatever. No, but seriously, there's a huge reason why game companies, right, are very woke, right? And I don't mean woke as in, oh, it's progressive, whatever. I don't mean in a negative term. I mean game companies, and this I won't get into the video here now, but I'm very brief here. Game companies tend to be, people that are bullied, right? Victims, right? People that are growing up, they were bullied at school, they were, harassed, whatever, right? So game developers tend to be a lot more left-leaning, because they're into tend to be more that way, right? Tend to be much more sensitive for woke stuff, like skin color, whatever, race, so to speak, right, and religion and so on, right? So there's a huge reason why IT companies, and even more so game companies like California and so on, are very left-leaning, right? Because everyone kind of around companies, they used to be bullied, you know what I mean? They used to be that thing, and that I would say is the biggest reason why they tend to be left-leaning, because they're basically all victims, right? In their childhood, right? And I don't say that as like, oh, yeah, they're victims. I mean, I mean more like in a fashion term. That just like me, right? I get bullied a lot growing up because obviously I was a nerd. I like video games, so I get bullied for that, right? So I think almost every like game developer and IT developer in general has been very much inclined having a life of being bullied and so on, right, and being ridiculed and so on. And that's a large reason, I think, why not only do they lack, I guess, maybe community, so they want to have a community, so they want to drink Kool-Aid, but also a reason why a lot of people then tend, so to speak, right, to be more into the whole like love and peace. Of course, everyone's gonna be friend, right? So they're less cynical for that reason, less pessimistic about it. They're more like, oh yeah, of course he loves everyone. He wouldn't just say that because he wants a favor, right? So that I think that's a large reason why, and also it's a very shallow mindset though. But I think that honestly is an interesting thing about because I mean, think about in a gaming industry why everything is going more and more, so to speak, woke then, like in better terms, is because probably most people, the game developers, are more, I say, they're more into actually believing that what people tell them is true. Okay, what I mean with that is that if someone, right, that is like, SPE or whatever, right, tells a game developer that, oh, but I'm doing this because it's a great this thing and it's gonna make everyone come together and so on, right? I think the bullied left-leaning victim game developer, which most of them are much more inclined to believe them at face value. You know what I mean? Where the ordinary person out in the world, so to speak, outside the gaming industry, whatever, they're less into just taking people on the word, believing them at face value. I think that's one reason why it's so easy to like progressify whatever, right? Video games, because most developers are more inclined to be left-leaning, absolutely by far, but also then again believing in what people telling them, right? People wouldn't lie to me. They're much more inclined to like just expect people to just like actually mean what they're saying, right? Of course, most people actually never actually say what they mean. And I like me, because I actually generally always tell people exactly what I mean. Yeah, I am very direct what I mean, right? Well, I'm very, very direct. If anything, I'm very too direct, so this is what I believe in you. But I think it's like that's a skill that I developed my whole life, right? Because for me, it's always like, well, if I can always tell if you're lying or not, I might as well always be honest myself, right? So I am like overly honest, right? Because I always felt that no one can lie to me. I always know people lying to me. I'm a lie detector. No one can fool me, so to speak. So that's my brain works. So I'm like, why should I try to fool anyone else, right? I'm always like super honest. That it's better, right? In a much more direct way, right? But anyway, video is longer than I was planning, but it's about it, right? As you can see, if I would go into like the whole thing, like why did the game not sell enough sales, why did neither of these games get a good publisher or whatever, this video will be like 50 hours long. So if you like that, subscribe and I will do that too. But I will do it eventually. Because for years I've been thinking of doing like a really long video about why one of the games failed. But again, it probably should be breaking down. But it's like there's so much talk about in a more general sense, like this was a bad idea for like marketing, or this is a good idea for PR or whatever, right? Of course, you learned it a lot as well there. But I felt that this video here, right, you're talking about when should you abandon, like leave ship, right? This company is working. It felt more relevant for the current events, right? Like, okay, it's probably time to abandon this company right now, right? And I also think that, like I said, right, I've seen it so many times, working with people, telling them for years, like, Jesus Christ, bro, this company is like minus 50 billion this year again. You're not gonna have any salary at any moment. You won't have any money, right? Like, why aren't you leaving? And yet they are not leaving, right? And I don't think that anyone that I work with will watch the video here, because they're probably gonna have like a panic attack after 1 minute video, so they probably won't get through it. But I hope you guys, at the end of it, through it, right? What you guys think. But there is a lot of it to break down there. But honestly, like I said at the bit end there, right? There is a huge tendency, certainly, for I think IT people in general, especially game developers, right, to have a lot of this like bully victim mentality. They've been victims a lot, and they fall for this issue. They fall for that false sense of community. They have it's easier to control them from like an evil kind of owner, evil manager thing. and so on. It's a lot of that thing that kind of stands out, I think. That makes it a mess in the first place. And obviously, like I said earlier, one of the points out, consensus culture in Sweden, which is a very Swedish thing, is extra strong, right, for game companies again. Then because everyone has been, most people have like a bad childhood or whatever, so to speak, right? And they all want to have like this part, they want to be like a cult, so on. So it's a lot of issues, right? But it's quite interesting. But again, look for red flags, right? What a red flag, yeah, and everything, right? What's a red flag? But for me, I think lastly, you see people talk about red flags all the time, right? When it comes to love and romance, right? But like, and not enough when it comes to jobs, you know. But the thing is that when it comes to romance, you see it in Friends or whatever, right? Just comedy TV shows. They make like a list of, you know, good or bad stuff about Rachel or whatever, right? I'm so surprised till to this day, right? The people don't do it with money, right? Because it's much easier with a job to actually have a list of plus and minus. It's much easier with making, is my company, financially plus or not. Yeah, it's much easier to do that than to do it right with romance. It's so funny to me in a way, tragically funny, right? How easy it is to actually just calculate, well, is this company going up or down, right? But that being said, though, I mean, of course, a startup company probably will lose you money, though. Yeah, of course, in the beginning, absolutely. But you have to understand, like, what are the money going to, What is the money going to? And again, who was investing into it second time, And, like, are the owners are telling you how many investment meetings do they have, or how is it going, and not give you this, like, smoke screen of, like, oh, it's going pretty well. It's like, really? Like, this seems really bad, right? So you should be keen aware how that's going, right? If you want to have a general, like, stable life, you know what I mean? Lastly, this is something I didn't think about earlier, but this should be early in the video. But honestly, and I'll say it here kind of roughly in the end, I also don't think that it's high value actually working at game companies that are new and startups. You have more freedom, so you might be able to design the game you want or whatever. But otherwise, yeah, actually, I don't think game development startup are valuable, because usually in like startup for IT companies, you will get stock, right? You will get share, you get a little bit of the cake, right? And you can make something that will explode, and a new product, right? But game company startups will just make a new game. It might explode, but the likelihood is way lower. So the actual benefit of taking the risk chance, right? Like basically the risk to what you can really gain for being at a game startup company compared to a normal IT startup is way worse. Like the actual maximum gain you would have is usually be way less, unless if you're the actual owner of the game company, right? So being an employee, I've been both, right? Both for IT and game companies. I would prefer way more for IT companies. Seriously, game startup companies are usually not worth it from a risk-lose, upper reward gain system. Definitely not. The only thing you really gain from that is usually like freedom to design whatever the game you want, right? So as an artistic expression, that startup game companies are usually the biggest ones. You can do whatever you want usually, right? In that sense, or have more freedom, but it's usually. But it is a weird one in that sense as well, right? As a side note, yeah. So if you don't even get that, no, but think about it, right? Everything I bring up now, all the red flags and things. Now the red flags, you probably will see it if you try to make a new Google or whatever, right? You're gonna see some red flags there too, right? But at least at that company, if the company goes well, you might be a millionaire, right? But if the game company goes well, you're not gonna be a millionaire. You're gonna have a normal salary. So it's like, yeah, that's a huge difference too, right? And again, then a game company is never gonna be the next Google, because you're making video games, right? You're never gonna be able to like make a new product. Sure, of course, sometimes new companies make video games come out and become huge, but it's actually much harder than making a new product or an app or whatever, right? Like I'm making something new with a new idea, right? Honestly. But anyway, if you guys would like it, so you guys can have a great day.